Okay, let's try this website. Looks like this new URL works. Where did I put that? Oh, right. And this works too. All right. Well, hello everybody. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Ibrahim Diallo, and this is part 4 of our How to Create a Website from Scratch. As you can see, I've made a few changes off camera, and these changes are not going to be permanent, but I just wanted to show you some things. I didn't add more pages, but I made some changes to the code that should make our creating a new article to be easier. But unfortunately, that also made the code very hard to understand. I mean, I made it yesterday, and today I come back to look at it and it looks confusing. I mean, I know how it works. It's just very hard to maintain. Okay. Anyway, so as you can see, when you write the wrong URL, now it takes you to the page that says page is not found. But yeah, anyway, so that's what it is. Okay, the reason I made this is to show you of something that happens once you start programming for a while. I mean, in the beginning, everything it's nice and dandy. It looks perfect. You know, you have a couple files, but as you keep working on it, your project becomes bigger, even though we still have only 2 blog posts and like a few other pages. It's starting to become more complicated. For example, I wanted to make the the titles of our blog posts to be clickable when you're on the home page, but because of the way I set it up, it's nearly impossible to make it. I'll have to basically hard code, which means write the actual URLs directly on the template and make sure that if we're accessing it directly from the article page, then it should not be a link. But yeah, that became very complicated to do, so I gave up on it. And the whole point is, this is what happens when you write spaghetti code. Yeah, that's what they call spaghetti. It's when you have like a bunch of code like with different includes and different parts. It becomes so hard to maintain. Every time you have to make a change, you have to go and relearn your code because it's not organized. And well, this is not the first time. Every time I start a small project like this, I end up with something that is nearly impossible to maintain. But don't worry, there's a solution. I'm not just telling you that it's over. We tried and we failed. There is a solution for this, and this is when people start thinking about using a framework. A framework, um, how should I describe that? It's a way to organize your code. It's a sets of rules to organize your code to make it easier to maintain or to have like someone else be able to contribute as well. And they're very useful, and I don't mind using them. Uh, like I was saying a few days ago on a comment, the frameworks are very useful, but I don't think they're the best way to get started. If you're trying to learn, I don't recommend you start with a framework. Recommend you start with spaghetti code. Just write whatever you want until you get to the point where you find that need that okay, my code is so disorganized and I really need to find a way to maintain it. And as you can see in this example, I add a third page, and in order to add a third page, I have to go and add a new file here called 003 create, and I have to go make sure that since I added the list of links on the navigation, I have to go and add that also there. I have so many places where I have to add it, and it becomes a mess. If I had like a nice framework that can automatically decide uh, what are links, I can just say add links to all articles here, and then that will make my life easier. But since I'm not using them that yet, it becomes difficult. So if you start a project on your own, you'll get to this point, okay? You can't avoid it. Even the great programmers end up, like, if they have their own code, unless they are really well organized, they will end up with spaghetti code. Yeah. So what is the solution? Well, the solution is to use a framework, and of course, now you have to think about which framework is the best. Well, before we go around and look for at all frameworks that are available, let's try to think, like, what is the problem? Why is our code not organized? Like, can we do something ourselves? And unless you're gonna be working with a team and you have like tight deadlines, I think you can just go and write the framework yourself. Like, you don't need a fully functional framework in order to have your website run. For example, in our case, we can have the previous version that we ended with on part 3. We can have that keeps running in the background. That's what we're going to be using to write blog posts. At the same time, we start building a framework. So this way, users to our website can still read our blog post, but at the same time, we're building something better on the side. And it also helps us learn something new. So that's what I think we should, at least that's what I'm going to be doing here. We're going to build a framework from scratch. And I know that scares a lot of people because they don't know where to get started. Well, don't worry about it. That's why you're watching this video. I'm going to show you how to get started. For example, if you check my blog, it's written from scratch. It's basically, I ended up building my own framework. I used to use Ruby for a while when I was getting started, and I kind of liked the way Ruby on Rails was designed. So I took some things from there. I also used Symfony, which is a PHP framework, which was also inspired by Ruby. So I learned a few combined a few things from there, like what the best of Ruby, the best of Symfony. And then I also, sorry, that was Symfony 1.3. That's the one I got started with. Then I used Symfony 2.0. That was actually way better. It was amazing. And I really liked the structure of it. And I went around, also checked other frameworks like Cake PHP. And I also analyzed the kind of stuff you have on WordPress or on Joomla. And not that I really like the way those are organized, but either way, they're great frameworks. But looking at all these things, I came up with my own little clone, basically, with adding things here and there, like where I think things make more sense. And I did that, and it looked okay. It worked for me. And we're not gonna be using my framework, but we're gonna build one from scratch. Let's say at the same time, if there's any errors or something I think that could be improved on my framework, I'll just add it directly here so we can work with it. Anyway, so we're gonna have to organize our stuff in a way that can make our life easier. Because look at this current framework, like the way our code is. There's just so many files, and none of them make sense. So let's try to find a good solution. So at least the way I like to design this, like before even starting to write things down, I want to think about my website as an application. Okay, so when you access it through the browser, you're accessing my application, and this application has a few roles, basically. So let's say, okay, when you go to www.scratchblog.com, automatically my application launches, the web server launches the application, and then here is like, okay, what do I do? The first task I want to do is to call a router. A router is just someone, like a script that is going to read the URL and tell me what to do. Tell the application what happened. Okay, for example, you access a page called scratchblog.com/articles/create a website. This router is gonna go and read that and try to translate it into the application. Basically gonna say, okay, so since it's this URL, here's the controller you can call. Okay, and here's the type of URL. Sorry, here's the type of request it was. It was a GET request. It had this, it had that. It will give me all this information from the user to my application. Okay, now that my application have this data back from the router, we can take it and say, okay, now we need a controller to go ahead to give me or the developer control over the application. So that's where we're gonna the application is gonna go and decide, okay, here's the URL, here's the controller to call. Okay, do whatever you want. So now at this part, we as the developers, we can go in there and say, okay, on this page, we want to have, we want to make a database request. We want this data. We want the first blog post, for example. Doesn't matter if it's a database request. We just want the data back. We say we want this blog post, and we want it to look like this, like that. You know, use this HTML, use that HTML, and then when we're done, we're done, we create a response and we give that response back to the application. That's it. Our job as developer is done. And the application, now that it has the response, it can take that response and give it back to the server, and the server will hand it back to the user, brings it back to the browser. The browser can now, you know, display the HTML however it wants. As you can see, the only part where we will be involved as, let's say, a developer using this framework is inside the controller. So that's where we're going to be getting data. We're going to be using templates to draw stuff on the page. We're going to be doing all our work there. And once we're done, we hand it back to the framework, and the framework, you know, gives it back to the server and all that. Okay. I know that might sound a little complicated, but let's think about it in simple terms. Like just these little things I said. Number one, router. Router does its job to give back the data to us from the URL. Then we give that data back to the controller. The controller gives the developer control over what you're supposed to do with this particular page. And when we're done with that, we give it back to the controller gives back control to the application. The application creates the headers and the content and gives it back to the server. And that's it. And that can be like, if we create a single function for each of those, that's it really. There's nothing else to do. Like just like that, we have an application. And of course, since we not only were the developer who's going to build the website, we're also the people who are going to build the framework. We're going to have to elaborate a little more. For example, the router, what does it do really? Like when it finds a URL, what does it do really? So we're going to be going through all of these in a series of videos that are coming. I'm going to give you exactly what you do as a router. Let's just call those jobs, you know, a router, a controller, and a response. And we're going to go and build these one at a time. And then at the end, give back control to the application, and the application will just give it to the server. Giving it to the server is easy, like in PHP. All you have to do is, you know, use those header functions that set headers and, you know, echo the content. That's it, really. There's nothing else there. But I'm going to elaborate a little more as I create each individual jobs. Okay, so yeah, today's video is going to be short. That's all really. And next time we're going to start by building that router. I'll see if we can do it all in a single video, or if it's too long, we're just going to do one at a time, because those things can become complex. But the advantage is this is not the code we're going to deploy on our website right away. While we're building this on the side, we can still continue writing blog posts, and you know, users who are using our websites, they can keep consuming. And whenever we're ready, we can just make the switch and nobody's even going to notice. This is like, that's the beauty of building a framework. It's not about changing the experience. You're just, it's like you're building something underground and nobody's noticing. You're making the foundation stronger, and you're making things work better without anybody noticing. Maybe some people will see that your website is getting faster or something like that, but they don't really see the difference. It doesn't change the experience for them. And that's why I really insisted that we start with creating blog posts. If you're building a blog, start by writing a blog post. If you don't have the luxury of writing everything yourself, use WordPress, Joomla, or whatever that's available out there. That's your main goal. All the rest is just an exercise. For example, building things from scratch. This is an exercise for us. Of course, if you keep on following this series, it's gonna help you. Like for example, work at a job where you can see things are being done, and you can join a team basically. That's why I'm not being specific about which framework to use, but if we build one ourselves, we can basically join any team that's using any framework, and we can just be productive members of that team as soon as possible. And also you get the advantage of knowing what are the things that really happen in the back of the framework, because for example, when I used to use Symfony, I think we had updated to Symfony 2.1. And at the time, we found a single bug. Okay. This bug was if you make a request to a page, a post request, there's like your application knows that there's a post, that this particular request was a post. But if you made a sub request, like you call a controller from somewhere else in your code, is going to change the post to a get. Okay. Now this was a problem because in order to fix that, you have to not just change your code, but change the foundation, the actual core framework. And imagine if you change the core framework and then there's an update that makes some changes to that or fixes that, then you might have some problems because you don't know what else they updated, or if your hack is gonna work. Because that's what we did. We didn't create an exactly we didn't make a change to the framework, but I created a hack to work with it. And then when Symfony 2.3 came out, there was so many advantages that we wanted to make the switch. When we started making the switch, we noticed that my change was conflicting with with the new framework. So I had to go and change my hack, which turned out to be a very giant hack in order to make that work. But yeah, anyway, it becomes problems because you don't have control over the framework. Whatever they decide that goes in, that's what goes in. And of course, if you're building your own framework, you can see all these parts yourself, and you can basically, you have the freedom to change that. Like when you see there's a problem somewhere, you can go out there and change it and, make a commit, and all the rest of your team can see that, okay, we made that change, and from now on, we're going to support sub post request, for example. Okay. Anyway, that's it for today. Just a little, basically, we didn't really write code, but I just wanted to show you these things to introduce you to the next series that we're going to be working on. So thank you for listening and watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe. When you subscribe, you get to see the new videos from me, and also click that like button. So not only you're telling me that you like the video, so I know what type of content I should continue creating, and at the same time, it helps other people discover this video. So yeah, don't forget to do those two things: subscribe and like the video. All right. Okay. So you will see me next time. Thank you. Bye.